Last week, I told you I was $1,888.93 in the hole on this card business. It'll take me 6 months to move the inventory that I already own at the current sales velocity that I have. So I started a challenge that I'm calling Back to Black. No new buys, list my bulk, and break down some commander decks was what I was going to do for the first week that I'm doing this series. That way I can see if I can dig myself out of the hole that I've put myself in. And I gotta be honest, the first week, I kind of already failed at part of that plan. And I heard something on a podcast that kind of broke the way that I'm thinking about my inventory. In case you're new here, my name's Josh. I run Tap for Games, a basement reseller for Magic the Gathering online. And I also dabble a little bit in Pokemon. I started this business and I did not start from zero, but I am working my way towards trying to make it a successful business for me, and I'm documenting the process along the way. And all of this has been done on top of my 9 to 5. So, quick reality check for my week 1 as I went through on my daily day. I said I was going to halt all of my buys, get my bulk listed, and start breaking down some commander decks that I have. So, what did I actually do? I managed to stop all my buys. Not a really big, hard challenge, to be honest with you. Although I saw a couple of deals that I was sad that I had to pass on. I got a large portion of my bulk listed. However, I did not get it all. I still have a lot of white border Magic cards that I've got to get listed, as well as some vintage Pokemon. And I only managed to get through 2 of the commander decks that I have, Jeskai Striker and Tricky Terrain. And I'll tell you why I picked these 2 sets a little later on. Because the most important thing that happened to me was not at my desk. It was in my headphones. While I was listing cards, I had Bronze Gods 321. It's a YouTube channel that I follow that does Pokemon. I had his Sunday Morning Conversations podcast on, and I was kind of very intrigued because the person he was interviewing was Mason from Cardinal Gaming. It was a great listing. I'm going to go ahead and link it down below in the description if you wish to check that out yourself. At one point, Bronze had asked Mason about bulk strategies and why bulk is important to his business. And Mason's response actually kind of took me aback, and I wasn't really ready for the answer that he gave. Now, the first part, it makes sense to me. So the first thing that he did say that made a lot of sense to me was that bulk is used in order to keep the business fed when the business is not doing well. So when the market fluctuates, bulk is there to help stabilize the business. But here's the thing that I didn't expect him to say. Mason said he has about 3 million cards in his inventory. 3 million. I have 21,000. His inventory size is about 142 times the size of inventory that I currently have. And that kind of broke my mental model for how inventory kind of is looked at within this specific industry. Let me tell you why. I have been treating my inventory as just-in-time inventory. And if you're not familiar with that term, what that means is you bring in inventory just in time for that order to be placed and get back out the door. It is largely used for expiry type products or anything of that nature. But that's what I had been basing my thought process for inventory on for my business. In my head, I thought, I'll keep the inventory fresh and lean, so that way I don't have too much sitting in the house at any given point in time. And I figured this would help keep the business moving and keep me out of trouble. However, what I took away from Mason and Bronze for this kind of a business is when we were saying, having a wide skew, wide and deep, deep and wide, however you want to call it, they're not just talking about having more skews. They're actually talking also about the depth of your skews. So when I'm thinking, 2 or 3, maybe 3 to 4 for a playset, they are actually talking in numbers that are probably much higher, like 20s, 30s, a magnitude of sorts above what I was thinking when it came to having inventory. And it was about this time that it kind of clicked on me about something that RNG Games had said, or Rob had said over there. And it was that it takes time to feed the beast. And at the time I had taken it as it takes a long time to, get the business up and running, multiple years to get to where he's at with the, LGS and all the different things that he's got going on. But no, I think what he might have actually been talking was how much you have to feed the inventory beast, not the business, the inventory beast, in order to be successful with your bulk, or in this case, with your card listings. And clearly this went over my head the very first time. So now I'm kind of sitting in this tension, as it were. I am trying to get out of the red, back to the black, and I'm nowhere near this LGS scale. I don't have that kind of size of inventory currently as it stands today. And I probably need to think bigger than my trying to keep it lean and fresh and start thinking about my next steps and how I want to grow the business in order to make this thing really work. So while I'm chewing on that, let's kind of talk about what actually happened with the sales this week. By the time last week's video had gone live, a small order had already come in. So instead of being down the $1,888.93, I was actually at $1,882.43 in the red, when Back to Black actually kicked off. That's just the fun of having to record something, edit something, and get it listed well before your next orders start to roll through. Kind of one of those fun timing problems. Since then, we had 42 orders come through the system, and those orders generated about $131.18 in gross profit for that week. If you've been watching my daily shorts, you can see how that is actually progressing because I'm vlogging every single day that the sales come through of what actually sold and went out the business. And I also update the number. And all of that rolls into this weekly update. And taking my balance of $1,882.43 down to $1,758.04. For the first week, with no new buys and only selling on TCGP and Manapool and a little bit of direct off my own website, I don't think that's too bad of a velocity. And it does tie back into my actual commander strategy, or the commander breakdown that I'm going to be doing, since some of those sales stem directly from that. So back to those two commander decks that I listed, Jeskai Striker and Tricky Terrain. I started with these two because they are EV positive for the price points that I'm buying them at. Just running the math on the singles and removing anything that was sub 25 cents, these sets, after fees, I'm expecting to bring in around $20 to $40 per broken down set. And since these are old enough, they still have the collector sample packs to add that extra value on top. New sets no longer have that because Wizards of the Coast felt that it was too cost prohibitive to include those within the commander decks. So when I got those two broken down and listed, I was seeing some of my cards get swept up into the orders that were buying the staples from those specific decks. So it becomes a rising tides lifts all boats. Now, that's the theory, and in practice, it works a good amount of time, but it's not consistent. There are times where people just come in and buy those segments of the deck, which is why you need to make sure the deck is EV positive before you just jump in and buy whatever it is. There are a magnitude of tools that are out there in order to help you do this. There's Topload.io, Moxfield, MTG stocks, all these different areas, and you can look at the specific cards and see how they all kind of pair out. You can even use Moxfield, but you have to keep in mind that their data set is not current market. It needs time to refresh, so you need to be cautious and not just go with any of these tools without doing your own manual research as well. Now that I've started to crack these decks, I want to keep going for week 2. So here's the game plan for week 2. It's not too different from week 1. First off, I'm going to finish cracking the remaining commander decks that I have that I want to, that are EV positive. Starting with the Tricky Terrain and Jeskai Striker. At the same time, I'm going to try and work through the remaining bulk that I do have. That way my receiving table is completely clean. And for my third step, I'm going to be working on researching ways for bulk acquisition or just acquisition and inventory in general to try and find more areas that I can possibly start to invest in to bring in more stuff. Now, I've already tapped my local play group, and they've been very generous in helping me get this business started. And it's one of the areas that I focused on for bulk acquisition first, because the relationship is there and I knew what I was getting and I could trust those folks because they're basically my friend group. On top of that, now I need to start backing off and finding other avenues to help me feed the beast even further. And those few collections that I have purchased online have helped, but they haven't been big enough or valued enough in order to drive the business faster along the path that I'm trying to get to. Because if Cardinal Gaming has about 3 million cards, I want to try and match that for the right size for my business in the basement. I don't know what that target is yet, but as it stands today, I need more cards in order to get more orders. Even though I already have some sealed products listed, which aren't moving the needle as fast as I would like, they're there to help build out the store further. Before I wrap this up, there are 2 things that I want your take on. First, the daily shorts. I've been creating and making these every single day and releasing them at 4 o'clock Central Standard Time, as I wanted a way to document this journey and also show you what it looks like as it is today for Tap for Games. It's a very simple format. Starts off, shows you how far I am in the red, and then it shows every card value that goes out, or at least the hits if there's too many cards that go out that day. And then I provide a full breakdown total to show you where I am at the end of the sales business day. So the question I have is, do you like seeing the progress broken out on a day-to-day basis? Or is a weekly recap better for you from a digestion standpoint as to what's going on with the business? If you can let me know down in the comments below, that kind of helps me gauge where I need to be from a content creation standpoint. And the second part is more of an open ask. If you're in my shoes week 2, what would you do in my position? You have 21,000 SKUs, 7,000 unique products. You've got sealed listed. Would you continue to hold buys? Would you actually start going out to market and finding cheap cards, just buying bulk, buying sealed, and getting it listed? Or would you try a different strategy? A lot of the comments in the last video were very interesting to me, as some folks said stay the course and be patient. I had another person say don't do small orders, just focus on 100 plus, which I thought was interesting because I don't know how they managed to just do 100 plus orders unless they're just doing a sealed strategy. In which case I would think that their margin, unless they have a good relationship or distribution with somebody to get cheaper product than I can, I'm only going to be making, $10, $15 per box at a slower velocity. But my top line would look really nice. But that's the question. Tell me in the comments below what you would do, and I'm going to read every single one of them and see if I need to make any adjustments. I'd like to hear it. I want to build a community, so please leave some feedback below. And if you're at all interested in watching me build this business and seeing the kind of behind the scenes of what it takes, hit subscribe, click the notification bell, and I will see you in the next one.